In October 1962, the world came closer to nuclear war than at any other time in history. For 13 days, two superpowers stood on the edge of total destruction. Not because they wanted war, but because every decision they made pushed them closer to it. This is the story of the Cuban Missile Crisis, not as a simple standoff, but as a chain of events where each move made perfect sense, and yet nearly ended the world. To understand how the world almost ended in 1962, you have to go back to the end of World War II. Because after that war, everything changed. War was no longer about armies crossing borders. It became about something far more terrifying: how fast you could destroy your enemy, and whether they could destroy you first. The United States and the Soviet Union both developed nuclear weapons, but they did not develop the same ability to use them. The United States built a system that allowed it to strike from multiple positions, including placing nuclear missiles in allied countries close to Soviet territory, especially in Turkey. From the American perspective, this was deterrence. But from the perspective of Soviet leader Nikita Khrushchev, it looked very different, because those missiles meant that if the United States ever decided to strike, the Soviet Union might not have enough time to respond. And in a nuclear world, not being able to respond meant not surviving at all. While this nuclear imbalance was building, something else was happening, just 90 miles from the United States. In 1959, Fidel Castro came to power in Cuba, overthrowing a government that had long been closely tied to American interests. Before Castro, Cuba's economy was deeply connected to the United States. American companies controlled major industries. The relationship was stable and predictable. But Castro changed that. He took control of those industries, removing American influence from the Cuban economy. From his perspective, this was independence. From the American perspective, it was a direct challenge, both economically and ideologically, and that difference in perspective quickly turned into action. In 1961, under President John F. Kennedy, the United States supported an attempt to overthrow Castro. It became known as the Bay of Pigs invasion. The plan depended on one key assumption: that once the invasion began, the Cuban people would rise up against Castro. They didn't. The invasion failed quickly and publicly, but the consequences went far beyond military failure. For Castro, it confirmed something important. The United States was willing to remove him by force. And for Khrushchev, it revealed something else. The American president might be inexperienced and possibly vulnerable. After the failed invasion, the United States didn't stop. Instead, it changed tactics. Through Operation Mongoose, the pressure on Cuba continued, just in less visible ways. There were sabotage operations, efforts to destabilize the economy, and even attempts to remove Castro from power. From Washington, this was strategy. From Havana, it looked like something else entirely. It looked like preparation for another invasion. And that belief changed everything. By this point, Cuba needed protection, and the Soviet Union needed leverage. Khrushchev saw an opportunity to solve both problems at once. If the United States could place missiles near the Soviet Union, then the Soviet Union could do the same. So he made a decision that would reshape the world. Under a secret operation known as Operation Nadir, the Soviet Union began sending nuclear missiles to Cuba. Not just missiles, but an entire military system designed to support them. The plan depended on one thing: secrecy. If the United States discovered the missiles too early, it could act before they were ready. But if the deployment was completed in time, the balance of power would change overnight. That secrecy didn't last. On October 14, 1962, an American reconnaissance flight passed over Cuba. What it saw changed everything. Missile sites under construction. Not rumors, not assumptions. Proof. For President Kennedy, this created a situation with no easy answer. Because once those missiles became operational, they could strike American cities within minutes. And now, time was running out. Inside the White House, the debate began. Some argued for an immediate airstrike, destroy the missiles before they became active. Others warned that such a strike might not eliminate all of them, and any surviving weapons could be used in retaliation. There was another problem. The United States didn't fully understand what was already in Cuba. Some nuclear weapons were already there. Some were closer to being operational than expected. But those details were unclear, and decisions were being made anyway. In the end, Kennedy chose a different approach. Not an attack, but a blockade. a naval quarantine designed to stop further Soviet shipments from reaching Cuba. It was a way to apply pressure, without immediately starting a war. American ships moved into position. Soviet ships approached, and for a moment, everything depended on what would happen next. If those ships tried to break through the blockade, the United States might respond. And if it did, the Soviet Union might respond in return. But something unexpected happened. Some of the Soviet ships slowed and turned back. It was a small moment, but it showed that neither side was ready to take the final step. Even as leaders tried to control the situation, events began to unfold beyond their control. At sea, a Soviet submarine, cut off from communication, was surrounded by American forces. Warning signals were dropped, but inside the submarine, they were interpreted differently. The crew believed war might have already started. They prepared a nuclear torpedo. The decision to launch required agreement. 2 officers were ready, but one man, Vasily Arkhipov, refused. He argued there was no confirmation of war, and without that confirmation, launching would mean starting it. The torpedo was never fired. At the same time, a U-2 reconnaissance plane was shot down over Cuba. The pilot was killed. Military leaders in the United States pushed for retaliation, but Kennedy held back, because by this point, one thing was clear. One wrong move could not be undone. Behind the scenes, communication continued. Khrushchev sent messages, some emotional, some strategic. One offered a way out. The Soviet Union would remove its missiles from Cuba if the United States promised not to invade. Another added a condition. American missiles in Turkey must also be removed. Kennedy made a calculated decision. He publicly agreed to the first proposal. Privately, he accepted the second. On October 28, 1962, the crisis ended. The Soviet Union agreed to withdraw its missiles from Cuba. The United States promised not to invade the island. And quietly, over the following months, American Jupiter missiles were removed from Turkey, a process completed by April 1963. The world didn't avoid nuclear war because it was safe. It avoided it because, at critical moments, people chose not to take the next step. Every decision in those 13 days made sense, when viewed in isolation. But together, they formed a chain that nearly became impossible to stop. And that is what made the Cuban Missile Crisis so dangerous. Not just the weapons, but the way perfectly logical decisions can lead the world to the edge of destruction.